Elon Musk encounters a setback as he launches a $1 billion+ project to attempt to get into space, only to have it encounter a rapid disassembly event. So we'll talk about what happened in Texas, what's going on with Elon Musk, why they think it's a good thing, and what happens from there. In other news, the Biden admin is now subsidizing high-risk home buyers. That is right. They are forcing companies to come back in and give out loans to people who are right on the cusp and right on the edge, but at the cost of people with higher risk. And I'll be talking a bit about what this means for the markets, what's going on with there, and we'll actually be talking more about this in things that I hate at the end of the show. So we're going to get a twofer off of this one, so stick around all through the rest of the program if you'd like to see what's happening with that. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ed Markey reintroduced the Green New Deal, this time trying to push it into healthcare. So we'll go over some of that and where it's going and what's happening there. And both Democrats and Republicans are anxious about wondering who is going to blink in the debt ceiling deal. It is going to be all this and more. I was the one flying the balloons. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. It's still funny to watch that somebody's going to see the replay of this on Instagram and they're going to hear the cold open and they're going to see me kind of bobbing my head and dancing and taking a drink over here and not saying anything and still not know what's going on. If you watch on the Instagram, whether live or on the replay, do remember that the link is in the description of my profile. Go to my profile, go to the description, and go to the YouTube link, because that's the one that's up there, and in the YouTube you'll actually find a link to the Twitch and the D-Live as well. A few other dead links that I need to take some time and take care of while we're going over everything here, but you'll see a bunch of links up there. Well, the one link up there that'll go into a bunch of other links. And you can come in and join the conversation with the people who are on the main channels. Reminder that the Rumble and the Odyssey channels do not marry to the other channels. So, as Grant pointed out, you can't say spicy stuff and get me thrown off the air, because Susan, or whoever her successor is, could see it come up on the screen when we have the chat coming up on the screen. But we'll also be watching a series of videos today. We'll be watching some Elon Musk stuff, and none of that can get transmitted out to Instagram. So you're just going to see me sitting here like this if you're on the Instagram side, and you're not going to see what's actually happening there. So join us in the link. The YouTube will give you access to the replay as well, what's happening after the fact, and you can join in and see what's happening there, and you will get an alert if you hit the subscribe button for when we are live. So you can come in and join the conversation with us. Still working right now, by the way, to get myself into a position where I can go back to the morning show. It does appear that my last attempt has fallen through, unfortunately, so we'll be looking at something there, definitely. But, you know, we're going to keep looking. We're going to find a way, because I do want to have that 7 o'clock spot put back in. I miss that, and I miss the audience coming up here, and I miss weaseling around words to not swear during that time, because I know that there were people who listened in the car while they were taking their kids to school and stuff like that. So we've got that. We've got this going on. We've got a lot to not really that much to talk about. This is kind of a light news day. In fact, if SpaceX hadn't been on the top of the news, I don't think that we would have a lot to go over here today. But we're going to be talking about SpaceX. We'll be talking about the housing market. We're going to do things that I like and things that I hate, which, by the way, will also involve what's happening on another article talking about what's happening with the Biden admin, what it is that he's looking to do, the debt ceiling, and plenty more today over here on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, and more. By the way, while I was on BitChute earlier today, I noticed that The R-Rated Conservative had his new video updated from the beginning of his channel, called What is an R-Rated Conservative? So you can go listen to him. It looks like I got the announcement from him and the missus. I didn't watch the video, but I saw the tweet on Twitter saying that he and the missus are going to be doing, I think, a couple nights a week, just going on. I don't think they're going to go their full hour-long rant that they used to do, but I think that they are going to be. And definitely if you see Mrs. RRC on there, if he's not flying solo, I like the RRC. I like Primo. I think he's hilarious by himself, but just when you get the two of them together, the chemistry is right there. So go check out all that great programming. Get your news, your culture, your politics, your religion, and a host of other things from people who are just like you. So go check out all that great programming, and let's get down into the main news of the day. We will start today with the finance, as we always do, and see what's happening there, which, by the way, with what we're going to be talking about in housing and the debt ceiling too, those are going to be some things that we should be paying attention to. I know that I've often used the finance section as a kind of a gathering time for people to go out and tell their friends so they don't miss anything that's important. But these are going to be numbers that are going to start being more important as we go on. But we have got the Dow today, which spent another day down, this time down 110.39 points at the close to 33,786.62. It dropped at the futures. It tried to claw its way back up. It approached the previous close. It just never quite made it there again. And then the bottom fell out right before the close again, before another sharp uptick at the end of the day. So 1/3% down. Nothing to really panic about this time, but now we've got 2 days of down in a row with no cresting in sight. So that's what we have for that. Looking in at your Bitcoin, for those of you who have Bitcoin, and we are sitting at another down day for that as well. The Bitcoin holding steady throughout the day before dropping off at the end of the day to 28,269.20, $28,269 US and 20 US cents. That is down $538 US and 70 US cents, or 1.87% on the day, as demand appears to be plummeting with that. So, some good news for you. The gas prices aren't going up. They're not going down either, but they're not going up right now. We've got 350 still on the west side, 340 on the east side, with the BP entering the isthmus at 326. That's your low price leader if you're in the Madison area. So go find the isthmus, go try to go through a bunch of really, really bad city driving and go get that 326 gasoline. Otherwise, you're at 340 on the isthmus as well. So the good news again is it's not going up. So that's what we have for that. Let's grab one on our markets from CNBC. Then we have well, for those of you who are into conservative media and like to bash on liberal media, today we do have our layoffs report will be something that we can all come together and laugh about. And I'm excited for that. But on the markets first, from CNBC, NASDAQ closes lower Thursday, dragged by Tesla shares from Samantha Subin and Alex Haring. Stocks dropped on Thursday as Wall Street reacted to a mixed bag of corporate earnings, including disappointing results from Tesla. Investors also assessed fresh data that signaled a contracting economy. The NASDAQ slipped 0.8 to settle at 12,059.56. The Dow lost 110.39 points, or 1/3% to close at 33,786.62, while the S&P dropped 0.6 to finish at 41,2979. All the major averages are on track for a week of losses, and the worst weekly performance for the Dow and the S&P since March. The S&P is down about 0.2%, while the NASDAQ has lost roughly 0.5%. The Dow is down about 0.3% and on pace to snap a 4-week win streak. Though so far it seems that equities have rallied, sentiment has been okay, and you're seeing equity volatility continue to grind lower. The story from corporate is that margins are under pressure. And we continue to see that decline, said Anna Hahn, equity strategist at Wells Fargo Securities. Mounting concern over downward pressure on profit margins hurt Tesla shares as the electric vehicle maker cut prices on some of its cars during the recent quarterly period. The company posted a more than 20% decline in net income from a year ago. After the bell on Wednesday, shares fell nearly 10%. I don't know why I don't have Rumble on here, because just in case somebody does come out to chat, I want to be able to see it and say something about it. But hence, I was looking over at the YouTube stream that we're getting our music from. Go check out Game Shops. It's probably one of my favorite streams. It's nice, it's light, it's airy, it doesn't take too much away from the news, but in case some genius, this guy right here, forgets to turn his microphone on, we don't have complete dead air either. The company posted a more than 20% decline in net income from a year ago. After the bell on Wednesday, shares fell nearly 10%. Other tech stocks showed signs of weakness. Nvidia, Microsoft, Meta, and Apple all finished lower. Seagate shares lost more than 9% after missing estimates, issuing a disappointing guidance citing weak demand. Energy marked another area of market weakness as oil prices declined more than 2%. Some laggards included APA, Marathon Oil, and Phillips 66. Disappointing results from AT&T and American Express did little to alleviate some of the market concerns. The payment company, offering another look at the health of the U.S. consumer, lost 1% as earnings per share fell short of estimates. AT&T fell 10.4% on slowing subscriber growth fears. So far this earnings season, about 16% of companies in the S&P 500 have reported results, with about 76% beating EPS expectations, according to FactSet data on Thursday. Many on Wall Street this season are bracing for an earnings decline. A general lack of profit forecast, however, has begun to concern some investors. So a few things that are moving here, and yeah, the corporate side of things it's looking grim. People are starting to look and see, what can I live without? What can't I live without? And make that decision. Something I noticed, and we'll probably talk a bit about this on things that I like as well, but I was looking earlier on today at, I've been in the market for buying a brand new truck for a little while, just because between doing contemporary and doing my full-time job, I just need to have, and I love working on my own vehicle, I do, but for right now, with the time constraint because of what I do here and what I do with my full-time job and everything else, I need to have something I can just get in and drive and not have to worry about a lot of maintenance. I mean, do the regular maintenance, obviously, but not have to worry about, are we coming up here on 130,000 miles where things are going to start to break and things are going to start to do things. So I've been in the market for it for a little while. And actually, when I first moved, I looked at buying a brand new truck, and, I didn't even do a very, very well-equipped truck. Like, I am not going to go out and buy a brand new Platinum Ford. And I'm a Ford fan, so I'm going to go buy if I buy a brand new truck and spend the amount of money that a brand new truck costs, I'm buying a Ford, and it's going to be a blue one. But I looked at it right after I moved, and I mean, a decently equipped XLT Ford was closing in on 70 to 80, low end of $70,000. Decently equipped, and even just a few weeks ago, I did it again and just kind of checked out, and you're still closing in on the low end of $70,000, the high end of 60, the low end of 70. I just did the same build today. I actually did a little bit extra because I put tow mirrors on this one and a couple of the other extra options on there. And honestly, they've come down quite a bit, partially because of the fact that people are wondering, do I buy or do I just sit on the cash that I have right now? I priced out a brand new F-150. Equipped the same way that I priced it out, with the exception of there were a couple extra options on it this time. But other than that, exactly the same way that I priced it out back in December, I think is when I did it, for $55,000. So they're going to start bringing those prices down to hope that people will come out and buy. Some of them might actually get sold at a loss at some point, which is insanity in and of itself. But if they get desperate enough, I mean, if these trucks just sit on the lot, these cars and trucks just sit on the lot, they're not making any money off of them. The dealers aren't making any money. and the manufacturer isn't making any money. So the only problem is because I prefer extended cab and it's the soccer dad truck now. Anything that I do want to go back and buy, I'm going to have to special order, which is going to take some time in and of itself. But that is where we are at for that. Let's look at the layoffs report, and let's have a little bit of a laugh with that too. Our layoffs report today comes from NBC News. BuzzFeed is shutting down. BuzzFeed News, rather, is shutting down. The move came as its parent company, BuzzFeed Incorporated, seeks further cost cuts. From Rob Weil. BuzzFeed News is shutting down. In an email to staff shared by NBC News, BuzzFeed Incorporated CEO and co-founder Josh Peretti said the move was part of a 15% workforce reduction across a number of teams. While layoffs are occurring across nearly every division, we've determined that the company can no longer continue to fund BuzzFeed News as a standalone organization, he wrote. Peretti said he had overinvested in BuzzFeed News because I loved their work and the mission so much. This made me slow to accept that the big platforms wouldn't provide the distribution or financial support required to support premium free journalism purpose-built for social media, he wrote. He added that he had failed to hold the company to a higher standards for profitability to give it a buffer during downturns. Moving forward, BuzzFeed will have a lone news brand, HuffPo, which BuzzFeed acquired in 2020 and which Peretti said is profitable, with a loyal direct front page audience. Affected BuzzFeed News staffers will have an opportunity to apply for a number of select roles at HuffPo, which is probably also wondering how they're going to keep all their staff on staff. And BuzzFeed.com, Peretti said, as he planned to engage. That's the other side too. Yeah, you can come and apply at BuzzFeed.com, the main page, but we're laying off over there too. They said it earlier in the article. We have layoffs that are going all across the sector, across every sector. But yeah, sure ahead. Come on in and apply. We're only laying off other jobs out there, but we'll find a space for you. Come in and apply, definitely. As he planned to engage with the News Guild Union about the cost reduction plans and what they would mean for affected union members. BuzzFeed News launched in earnest at the outset of 2012 after it was named longtime New York City political reporter Ben Smith as its editor-in-chief. In 2021, the news organization won a Pulitzer Prize for a series exposing China's mass detention of Muslims. That same year, it also named a Pulitzer finalist, the second time it had received the honor. Later that year, BuzzFeed became a publicly traded company amid a global frenzy of reverse mergers, many of which have since lost significant value. In BuzzFeed's case, it never traded above its initial public offering price of about $10. Ha 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 ha! Following the announcement on Thursday, shares of the company fell another 20% to about 72 cents. Boy, I bet you those people are glad that they went in on BuzzFeed. And to you, BuzzFeed, I offer you this. We get to have a laugh about that, which is fun because we're not going to be having a laugh in just a minute. I'm going to read one more, just a little bit of copium about the BuzzFeed thing, and then we're going to go into, just like I said yesterday, we do start when there are natural disasters with the bad news before we start off anything else. But let's go. Let's listen. Well, let's look at the cope. From Slate, BuzzFeed News is dead. Who is really to blame? From Hillary Fry. I heard about BuzzFeed News shutting down right before it hit Twitter. Word travels fast among industry old-timers like myself. and we try to keep each other in the loop. The consensus in this little group chat was that this is really sad, but not surprising. Nothing had been going as planned for BuzzFeed CEO Josh Peretti in the last while, as indicated by his company's tanking stock prices. The consensus outside the group was that a little bit harsher, I guess. I get it. I'm always sorry and sad and depressed when journalists get laid off in this business. I have both been laid off and have had to preside over many layoffs, notably at HuffPo, which is now the primary news brand of BuzzFeed Incorporated. It's always hard, and I hated it every time, but it also makes me crazy when the grenades start being lobbed at Twitter and in blog posts at the failures of top management and what a bunch of idiots must be running a place for layoffs to happen. No, not... Well, kind of. We'll talk about this. I'm certainly not saying there are no idiots in this business. I worked for some of them I shall not name, but you're welcome to go look at my LinkedIn and hazard a guess or two, but I'm not ready to put Jonah Peretti alone on the stake here, and I think it's important for anyone who cares about the endeavor of journalism to understand why. Back in 2010, I was the managing editor of Adweek. I knew nothing about advertising, but Michael Wolff, yep, that Michael Wolff, had been hired to overhaul the trade magazine into more of a consumer-facing publication. And he hired me on the spot over a glass of wine at Il Buco. At the time, I was at Politico and miserable. I woke up at 5:30 every morning and moved copy all day, from stupid little posts about what was in a congresswoman's purse to smarter assignments like interviewing Jonathan Franzen about why he hated DC so much in his novel Freedom. Traffic was all that mattered, and I berated my reporters to file, and we won. And last 2 months at Politico, my little gossip section had the best traffic at the site. Alright, I'm sorry, Hillary, but I don't really care about your history here. Who's to blame? This is where the execs can be blamed, with VC and investment money freely flying around. Hello, Vice. Results had to be delivered quickly. Over-promises predicated on belief in the whims of Mark Zuckerberg and the other tech bros were made. Those of us with experience manning the ships of these newsrooms brought cautious enthusiasm and basic compliance with each new request. An expert video team would be funded and hired to create shows, only to be told to make 2-minute text-on-screen news summaries 6 months later. Because that's what Facebook wanted. How about a good news vertical? Facebook said people are tired of politics. Wait, it's an election season again. Get back on politics. Relaunch shows, maybe as audio this time. Look, I'm gonna come back out and say what actually happened with BuzzFeed. Now, BuzzFeed Incorporated had BuzzFeed News, but then they decided that they needed to go and acquire HuffPo. Which means that they're trying to split their audience between BuzzFeed News and HuffPo, running off the same company. You're competing for time in this industry, which is part of the reason that I feel that I do struggle in this time slot, but I also come out and point out where the struggle is in this time slot, is that we are competing for people's time. I want people to sit down and watch the entire 2-hour segment of Contemporary every day, whether it be on live or on the replay, but I want them here, butts and seats for every day. But, you know, they've got Tim Pool out there, they've got Christensen that they can go back and listen to, and Christensen's not here every day. You can have a 5-hour sermon from Stephen Ignoramus. I mean, there's only 24 hours in every day, and I understand that. But the deal, and again, this was part of the reason too, when I was doing the morning show, when I was doing Contemporary in the morning, but also when I was doing the shows at night and looking at who was on and who wasn't on, was the fact that I tried with Turns of Pages Productions creators, formerly Freedom Scoop creators, to make sure that I was never on at the same time as they were. I went out of my way to make sure that I was off air before Steven got on air. And again, even, you know, part of with what I did in the morning was the fact that Steven started at 9 o'clock Central Time every morning, 10 o'clock his time. So even if I had news run over, I could have theoretically stayed until 9:30 every day, because I didn't have to be to work until 10. But still, I wanted to make sure I was done and off the air by 9, so you guys could get right over to the Daily Ignoramus and go have a listen to him, because I wanted to see him successful too. And again, there are only 24 hours in a day. I never wanted to be on at the same time slot as the Generational Gap or Porch Boys after Robert dropped out. And again, went out of my way to make sure that nobody was on at the same time. I tried to coordinate. I tried to get everybody to coordinate with each other to do so. But now, with this, now there is an audience for the kind of news that's coming off BuzzFeed. I laugh at them and I say nobody wants to get lectured to, but there is an audience for that. There are people that are so inured, so self-hating, self-loathing, that they want to be lectured to and told how horrible they are for being white and straight, and how they have to do reparations and a series of things like this. But now, BuzzFeed was competing with these self-loathing people across two fronts. When they acquired HuffPo, I said at the time, the first thing they need to do is shut down BuzzFeed News, because there's a massively loyal audience that they were competing against HuffPo for, that now they're competing with themselves for. And one of the two is going to give, and I guarantee you it's not going to be HuffPo. So, BuzzFeed News is gone. HuffPo is still there, regretfully. If you really want to hate yourself that much, go check out HuffPo. Meanwhile, Slate can sit here and cope and say, it's the corporate and they're changing everything and they're telling us to do one thing and do the next thing. No. It was an overstretch for audience. It definitely was. Alright, let's talk about some tragedy, now that we're done laughing at our friends over at the Huffington Post. How did Rush used to say it? The Huffing and Puffington Post. From News 9 out of Oklahoma City. 2 dead in central Oklahoma tornado outbreak. Two people died in storms that caused extensive damage across parts of central Oklahoma. Grant says you need to learn how to talk faster. I mean, I can go through my nose, I can talk this way, and I can always do the Shapiro thing. I can probably even go find a yarmulke somewhere, and I can put it on my head, and I can come in and say, I can't be anti-Semitic, and I can't be a white supremacist, because I'm a Jew, and I can't be gay because I'm a Jew. My wife's a doctor. I could do that. But I feel like that's somebody else's brand, and I don't want to do that. Two people died in storms that caused extensive damage across parts of central Oklahoma. Those storms produced up to a dozen tornadoes, some of them strong tornadoes. Family members identified Mike Bradsher as one of the fatalities from a tornado that struck the town of Cole in McLean County. The second death was an adult woman, but she hasn't been named yet. The tornado hit Cole early Wednesday evening as part of a storm that eventually made its way to Shawnee, causing extensive damage to Oklahoma Baptist University and homes near Shawnee High School. There was a third death reported to News 9 Thursday morning, but it turned out to be only 2. We'll talk about that. North and southbound US 177 is closed between Farrell Street and Kickapoo Spur in Shawnee due to downed power lines. In Cole, all lanes east and westbound on State Highway 74B have been closed between State Highway 74 and State Highway 76 due to a downed power line as well. The Scissortail Silos Event Center was destroyed by the storm, its proprietor told News 9 via email. So, some F's in the chat for that, definitely. Looking a little bit more at KOCO News, torpedoes. Guess who didn't get enough sleep last night? Tornadoes, severe storms in Oklahoma leave 3 dead, widespread damage. From Jonathan Greco. At least 8 tornadoes touched down Wednesday in Oklahoma, leaving 3 people dead and widespread damage in parts of the state. KOCO5 has teams in Shawnee and Cole as well as Sky 5 covering the devastation. Below is a running blog of the morning updates. 5 p.m. Thursday update. The National Weather Service is surveying the area in Shawnee to see if its preliminary rating of EF2 will remain, so this might even be upgraded at some point. The Red Cross has set up shelters in Shawnee, Noble, and Washington for anyone impacted by the storms. They are looking to help. Can make donations to the Red Cross at redcross.org/donate, or they can text Red Cross to 90999 to make a $10 donation towards disaster relief. 4:35, Shawnee Public School Superintendent Dr. April Grace spoke with COSO about how the storm damage could impact the district. Oof. That's brutal. I think it's a church. 4:30 p.m., Oklahoma Baptist University President Heath Thomas provided an update after the university saw extensive damage from last night's storms. One of the victims killed when a tornado moved through McLean County Wednesday was identified as a 66-year-old man. McLean Deputy Scott Gibbons told KOCO 5 the victim was identified as Michael Bradsher Sr. He was one of 3 people killed when severe storms hit parts of Oklahoma late on Wednesday. So, just some major devastation with this. Looking in at the Weather Channel. Deadly tornado strikes Oklahoma town from Eric Zirkle. At least 3 people were dead after multiple damaging tornadoes struck south of Oklahoma City Metro Wednesday night. One of the tornadoes caused significant damage to the town of Cole in McLean County. At least 3 people are dead. 2 were confirmed to be residents of McLean, while another was transported from an adjacent county, according to the McLean County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff spokesperson Scott Gibbons told Weather.com that search and rescue efforts were mostly over as of late morning. Which, I mean, the fact that they can close it at good news, I see that as good news. Yes, there are people that are deceased, but if they can close it as early as this morning, that means that most everybody who was in the area has checked in. The head count is done, and they say, okay, well, we only lost 3. And we can confirm everybody else is up and moving. A number of people were also injured, but it was hard to pin down a specific number, Gibbons said. Earlier, Gibbons said that many roads were inaccessible and blocked by debris, which complicated search and rescue efforts. Hundreds of first responders were conducting the search and rescues along the 10-mile path of destruction in the county, officials said. So, if you know somebody in Oklahoma City area, we do need to go check on Ron, by the way. He hates me right now for telling Spartan not to constantly do the Jew thing. So I know he's mad at me, but we do need to go check on Ron. Make sure Ron's safe. That Ron Helton, again, no matter how mad he is at me, is a national treasure that needs to be preserved. So I will probably do that after the show. Unless somebody else has a line on Ron Helton, I will do that after my show. Alright, let's talk SpaceX. We've got some video to go with this. Starting with CNN, SpaceX's Starship rocket lifts off for inaugural test flight but explodes mid-air. From Jackie Waddles and Ashley Strickland. Let's do this angle first. I've got other angles of this. But we'll start with this one. Why CNN can't resist but to come back out and do this thing where they cut a little clip and then they put their text or their talking over the top of it. I thought we were just going to actually watch the liftoff and the explosion, not a minute and a half of commentary with it. If I wanted a minute and a half of commentary, we'd read the article, which we're going to do right now. SpaceX's Starship, the most powerful rocket ever built, took off from a launch pad in South Texas at 9:33 a.m. Eastern Time, but exploded midair before stage separation. I believe Elon Musk is calling this a rapid disassembly event. Thursday's launch marked the vehicle's historic first test flight. As if the flight test was not exciting enough, Starship experienced a rapid unscheduled disassembly before stage separation, SpaceX tweeted. I love that term, by the way. That term always makes me laugh. The massive, super heavy rocket booster, which houses 33 engines, lifted off and sent a massive boom across the coastal landscape as it fired to life. The Starship spacecraft riding atop the booster soared out over the Gulf of Mexico. About 2.5 minutes after takeoff, the super heavy rocket booster was scheduled to expend most of its fuel and separate from the Starship spacecraft, leaving the booster to be discarded into the ocean. The Starship was meant to use its own engines, blazing for more than 6 minutes to propel itself to nearly orbital speeds. The flight reached its highest point at 24.2 miles above the ground, and the explosion occurred about 4 minutes after liftoff, according to SpaceX. The vehicle experienced multiple engines out during the flight test, lost altitude, and began to tumble. According to an update from SpaceX, the flight termination system was commanded on both the booster and the ship. SpaceX says that teams will continue to review data and work towards our next flight test. The road and beach near the launch pad were expected to remain closed until Friday. Now, as far as I understand, this was an unmanned situation. An anomaly occurred during the ascent and prior to stage separations, resulting in loss of the vehicle. No injuries or public property damage have been reported. Okay, that's a confirmation there. This was an unmanned test. According to a statement Thursday afternoon by the FAA. The FAA will oversee the mishap investigation of the Starship Super Heavy test mission. A return to flight of the Starship Super Heavy vehicle is based on the FAA determining that any system, process, or procedure related to the mishap does not affect public safety. This is standard practice for all mishap investigations. Although it ended in an explosion, Thursday's test met several of the company's objectives for the vehicle. Clearing the launch pad was a major milestone for the Starship. In the lead-up to liftoff, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk sought to temper expectations, saying, success is not what should be expected. That would be insane. With a test like this, success comes from what we learn, and today's test will help us improve Starship's reliability as SpaceX seeks to make it multi-planetary. SpaceX tweeted after the explosion. Musk congratulated team members on an exciting test launch in a post-launch tweet and said they learned a lot from the next test launch in a few months. SpaceX will need a new launch license from the FAA to make another attempt, but the company does not expect the process to be as laborious as securing the license for Thursday's launch. NASA admin Bill Nelson took to Twitter to share his congratulations about the test flight. So, yeah, they're still looking at this as a major success in spite of the fact that it blew itself to pieces mid-flight. Read a little bit from the Daily Mail talking about this. Daily Mail reporting, SpaceX claims it intentionally blew up $3 billion Starship rocket as it spiraled out of control during a failed launch in Texas, as DailyMail.com's graphic shows how craft went from blast off to blaze of fire in 4 minutes. From Stacy Liberator for DailyMail.com. SpaceX claims it pulled the trigger that exploded the Starship midair Thursday during its second attempt at orbital flight. The massive 395-foot stack, comprised of Super Heavy booster and Starship, launched at 9:33 a.m. Eastern Time for its first orbital launch that burst into flames 4 minutes after takeoff. While Elon's company activated the first flight termination system, the Super Heavy massive craft failed to separate, sending it into an uncontrolled death spin. Thousands of people stood around the South Texas facility watching as Starship ignited its 33 powerful Raptor engines and shot off toward space before experiencing a rapid, unscheduled disassembly, also known as blowing the heck up. The outcome was not ideal, but Elon Musk, NASA, and SpaceX team are celebrating its success. The main goal was to get Starship off the launch pad. So, they're saying they did it by themselves. I don't know. It wouldn't be an unscheduled disassembly then, would it? But, well, let's watch the video. Starbase Watcher, starting off this segment. Starship 24 atop a Super Heavy Booster 7 liftoff southern view. It was tremendous looking north to the SpaceX Starbase launch complex as Super Heavy Booster 7 ignited its Raptor 2 engines, generated 16 million pounds of thrust, and cleared the tower. Let's watch. Take some of that down. Like, it doesn't sound that loud from here, but I was just looking over at my monitors and just off the charts. And there it goes. And the carnage. With, of course, the commentary, because right now our friends on the left will take any opportunity to disparage Elon over this. Frank Lesser tweets out, "So what if you moved a bunch of SpaceX engineers over to Twitter to figure out how to remove blue check marks? What's the worst that could go?"
And that appears like the automated flight termination system has been activated. And that appears like the automated flight termination system has been activated.
I believe in Star Trek they call that the self-destruct sequence. What else do we have? Oh! The Ministry of Truth. With an update off this. The Ministry of Truth, the United States Ministry of Truth. Which is a parody account, by the way. Breaking! U.S. Air Force confirms takedown of SpaceX rocket via F-22 interception. President Biden quoted as saying, We can't have a way of knowing when or not it isn't a balloon or the other kind that, you know, it always, integrity, man. Again, before the misinformation czars on YouTube come over here, this is a parody account. And you know they would do something like that too. This is parody. Elon, right before this clip that I wanted to share from his interview with Tucker, Ian Miles Chong, who is still gray, by the way, is telling us, for better or worse, there are no aliens. There is no evidence of intelligent extraterrestrial life, hence the Fermi paradox. The only aliens are the guys standing in front of Home Depot looking for a landscaping job, because that was one of the conversations that Elon and Tucker had. Let's listen. And ironically, this is right before he tried to throw a rocket into space.
Like we're here on Earth for granted, you know, and that there's consciousness is just a normal thing that happens. But to the best of my knowledge, we see no evidence of conscious life anywhere in the universe. So it might be there. You know, physics they call it sort of the Fermi paradox. After when Enrico Fermi was an amazing physicist, asked the fundamental question: where are the aliens?
Yeah.
A lot of people ask me, you know, where are the aliens? And I think if anyone would know about aliens on Earth, it would probably be me.
I would think.
Yeah, I'm, you know, very familiar with space stuff. And I've seen no evidence of aliens. So, I would immediately tweet it out. This is a split second. That'd be like one all time, probably the top tweet of all time. I found one, guys. It's a jackpot. Some 8 billion likes. Next level jackpot if you find the aliens.
If there were aliens, I would tweet it out in a second. I'm going to stand against Ian Miles Strong on this. I do mathematically. Now, I'm not a person like my friend Steven, whom I love dearly, who believes that space is fake, there's a dome over the top of the world, and the Earth is flat. I've seen enough mathematical data. I've done enough experiments. The only thing that I haven't done is gone into space to show that our Earth is round. And it is not the center of the universe. And in fact, there are billions and billions and billions of stars just out that we can see in our celestial area. The mathematical probability that none of them has life at all, whether intelligent or not, is... it's mathematically impossible. Some of them may be more advanced than us. Many of them may just be a few single cells clinging to life in something that barely has the ability to support life. But just mathematically, I don't believe that there's a possibility we're alone in this universe, or even in this galaxy for that matter. Well, I may be proven wrong at some point in my life, or I may be proven right. We don't know. But that's where we're at for that. Alright, let's talk. What do we have up next here? A little bit of interesting news here from a whistleblower, which I know that this is going to be one that they're going to come back and try to criminalize because this particular whistleblower said something bad about Democrats. From the Hill, IRS supervisor, Biden admin mishandling Hunter Biden investigation. From Jared Gans. A possible whistleblower is accusing the Biden admin of mishandling the investigation to possible tax crimes related to Hunter Biden and is seeking protections to testify before Congress. Good luck with that. Mark Lytle, an attorney for a supervisor for the Internal Revenue Service, sent Congress a letter obtained by The Hill on Wednesday that they have information that contradicts sworn testimony that a senior political appointee gave to Congress. It does not name the official. The letter does not specifically name Hunter Biden, but states the IRS agent has been overseeing the ongoing investigation into a high-profile controversial subject since early 2020. And it accuses the admin of failure to mitigate clear conflicts of interest in the case and details instances of preferential treatment and politics improperly affecting decisions and protocol. Despite serious risks of retaliation, my client is offering to provide you with the information necessary to exercise your constitutional oversight function and wishes to make the disclosures in a nonpartisan manner to the leadership of the relevant committees on both sides of the political aisle, the letter states. The Wall Street Journal first reported on the letter. The Journal reported that people familiar with the matter said the investigation mentioned in the letter refers to the one into Hunter Biden, and ABC News reported that lawmakers have been made aware that Biden is the subject reference. The letter states that the IRS agent has already made legally protected disclosures to the U.S. Treasury Inspector General for tax admin and the Justice Department's Inspector General. It states that some of what Lytle's client wishes to share includes information that is restricted from being disclosed without authorization to protect private taxpayer information. So, in just these few paragraphs, there is a lot to unpack. Now, number one, we have unnamed sources. Obviously, the whistleblower who is still seeking protection is unnamed. But we also have, when they say that is a Hunter thing, we have unnamed sources that are coming from this. I don't know if I'm ready to buy this. And part of that comes from the fact that the investigation that they're referencing started in early of 2020. I don't know how much they were looking into Hunter yet at the time. Do keep in mind, though, that early 2020 was also in the position to be right around impeachment 1.0. Because they were doing that hoax right before everything dropped off as far as the pandemic went. So this is possibly a look into Hunter, and this is possibly a person who was working to protect Hunter, but was doing it initially under Trump's IRS. Before I come out and say that this is the bombshell to end all bombshells, I need a lot more information. That honestly, I'm going to come out and say that we're probably not going to get. But what I will say to this is, if this is true, then I'm not even surprised at this point. This doesn't even cross the realm of shock to me. Based on the fact that, I mean, and I said when they started talking about prosecuting Hunter for tax crimes, tax fraud, or even if something else were to come before the DOJ about Hunter. And there are, from what I understand, likely hundreds of federal crimes that are there. What is Merrick Garland going to do? Prosecute his boss's kid? No, they'll quickly get dismissed and swept under the rug. I don't know why this dude is in a glass case. I kind of want to know, but I kind of don't. But that's what we have coming for that. I want to talk about the Biden plan to save the housing market, rather. This is from the New York Post. How the U.S. is subsidizing high-risk home buyers at the cost of those with good credit. Now, this first came to my attention from Grant, who is regularly in the chat over here in the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, you are missing out on some of the conversation. I understand that Discord is scary, and sometimes you might get saddled with government secrets there, but you can go check mine out. It's a fun time. And what the heck? Grant, if you're still in here, what night was that? Was that Monday night that you dropped that in there, or Tuesday? I think it was Monday night that you... Anyway, Grant dropped an article from Hot Air, which is what I have at the end of the show when we're going to talk about this a bit more. And my conspiracy theory about this. We're going to stick with the facts for this right now, but at the end of the show, we'll do my conspiracy theory on this. But we talked about this a bit, and I waited until the Green Check Verified stuff started coming out, which the New York Post is Green Check Verified. Partially because I wanted to make sure that it was real. Hot Air is not a Green Check Verified source, but also I kind of wanted to see if CNN just ignored it or put their spin on it. Well, let's read from Thomas Barabi. A little noticed revamp of federal rules on mortgage fees will offer discounted rates for home buyers with riskier credit backgrounds and force higher credit home buyers to foot the bill, the Post has learned. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will enact changes to fees known as loan level price adjustments on May 1st that will affect mortgages originating at private banks nationwide from Wells Fargo to JP Morgan, effectively tweaking interest rates paid by the vast majority of home buyers. The result, according to industry pros, pricier monthly mortgage payments for most home buyers, an ugly surprise for those who worked for years to build their credit, only to face higher costs than they expected as part of a housing affordability push by the U.S. Federal Housing Finance Agency. It's going to be a challenge trying to explain to someone that says, I worked my whole life for high credit and I put a lot of money down and you're telling me that's a negative now? That's a hard conversation to have, one worried Arizona-based mortgage loan originator told the Post. It's unprecedented, added David Stevens, who served as Federal Housing Admin Commissioner during the Obama admin. My email is full from mortgage companies and CEOs telling me how unbelievably shocked they are by this move. The tweaks could further complicate strenuous mortgage applications process and add more pressure on a core segment of buyers in a housing market that's already in the midst of a major downturn. talk about that in just a moment. Because I know part of the reason they're doing this, and part of that is going to stay on this topic, but there is a reason they're doing this. The experts added the average 30-year mortgage rate is hovering around 6.25% as of last week, up from about 5% 1 year ago and more than twice as high as it was 2 years ago, according to Freddie Mac. Under the new rules, high credit buyers with scores ranging from 680 to 780 will see a spike in their mortgage costs, with applicants who place 15 to 20 down experiencing the biggest increase in fees. This was a blatant and significant cut of fees for their highest risk borrowers and a clear increase in much better credit quality buyers, which has clarified to the world that this move was a pretty significant cross-subsidy pricing change, added Stevens, who is the former CEO of the Mortgage Bankers Association. LLPAs are upfront fees based on factors such as borrower's credit score and size of their down payment. The fees are typically converted into percentage points that alter the buyer's mortgage rate. Under the revised LLPA pricing structure, a home buyer with a 740 and 15 to 20% down will face a 1% surcharge, an increase of 0.75% compared to the old fee of just 0.25%. When absorbed into the long-term mortgage rate, the interest increase is equivalent of slightly less of a 0.25 percentage point mortgage gain on a $400,000 loan with a 6% mortgage rate. That buyer could expect their monthly payment to rise by just about $40, according to calculations by Stevens. Meanwhile, buyers with scores of 679 or lower will have their fees slashed, resulting in more favorable mortgage rates. For example, a buyer with a 620 with a down payment of 5% or less gets a 1.75% fee discount, which I'm not down that low, but that's pretty close to where I'm at. A decrease from the old fee rate of 3.5% for that bracket. When absorbed in the long-term mortgage rate, that equates to a 0.4% to a 0.5% discount. The FA ordered the overhaul of LLPAs to affect purchase loans, limited cash-out refinances, and cash-out refinance loans. The revamped pricing matrix also includes the controversial addition of a new charge for buyers with debt-to-income ratios above 40%, a convoluted measure that drew immediate pushback from the Mortgage Bankers Association and other industry groups who warned it would be difficult to implement. After the pushback, the FHFA announced last month it would delay the rollout of the debt-to-income fee until at least August 1st. A move, it said, would ensure a level playing field for all lenders to have sufficient time to deploy the fee. The LLPA fee changes are still slated to take effect on Monday. So, what are we doing? Number one, we are going in and we are subsidizing. And that is exactly what this is. The intent here is to put some cash into the coffers from people who are not going to default on their loans, from people who are going to steadily go back and make the payments. Even some of the people who are probably going to pay down their mortgages way, way, way early. The idea here is to get subsidy money from them that goes into a savings account. And honestly, I think the majority of people who are buying houses are going to fall into that category. I would have to look at the statistics there to see. But this is telling me that this is going to generate a lot of money. To make a comfort zone for more buyers to be able to come in with the risk of default and the risk of foreclosure. And these banks will have the cushion there to go back and do something else, to be able to fall back on when they start having a bunch of foreclosed houses. Realistically, this is opening up the door to get more people into the housing market. People who are just below the level of able to get up into there. And in the fact, as they mentioned in the article here, that the housing market's already into a downturn, the point is to get more people coming in bidding on houses to hold the house prices up. When the house prices dump and tank, like the entire world is anticipating that they do, that is the lion's share of wealth for most of the people who own a house. That's their positive wealth that they hold. So this is an attempt to hold this up and to keep these prices up, so these people who are looking at down the barrel of a recession don't lose everything when the housing market goes in, and they suddenly, if they either need to refinance or try to get into a lower payment, don't have the equity to do so because their house is worth $100,000 less than it was when they bought it. You see where I'm going with this? So, we're going to talk about this more at the end of the show on things that I hate. Because I looked at this earlier and I saw the strategy of what they're actually doing with this. And it's twofold, and it's terrible on both folds. Let's read about the debt ceiling. Seems like both sides are getting a little bit angry at their own representatives on this. Reuters reports U.S. House Republicans squirm over Speaker McCarthy's debt ceiling proposal. From Richard Cowan. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has begun working in earnest to persuade his fellow Republicans to support a $1.5 trillion increase in the nation's debt ceiling amid early indications of a possible revolt in his thin majority. McCarthy faces the toughest test of his young speakership with a bill he hopes to pass in the House next week, a measure that rankles some in his hot rank and file by authorizing more government debt. He's trying to couple it with tough new spending controls. It is his opening shot with a negotiation with the Democratic President Joe Biden, whose party also controls the U.S. Senate. If the divided Congress fails to raise the federal government's $31.4 trillion debt ceiling, the government could face a default that would shake the U.S. and world economies. Which, by the way, is why so many people are lining up behind China and Brazil right now. We're in very good shape. We just rolled out yesterday. We're working, talking through all the members, McCarthy told reporters on Thursday. Financial markets are already showing signs of worry about the standoff, with the cost of insuring exposure to a U.S. debt at its highest level in a decade, and financial analysts raising concerns about the risk of a default. Several House Republicans on Thursday either raised concerns about the proposal or acknowledged that a tough battle ahead on a bill that's unlikely to win Democratic support. Don Bacon, a Republican from Nebraska, told reporters that he supports the legislation, but said if the vote were held on Thursday, it might not pass, as some in his caucus are struggling with it. It's not unusual for members of Congress to sometimes withhold their support for legislation as a way of winning concessions. That does not mean that in the end that they will defy their leadership. McCarthy faces a tough path as he can lose only 5 votes from his razor-thin 222-member majority to pass legislation if Democrats remain united in opposition, which on this they will. It took him 15 rounds of voting in January to win the speakership, a sign of the dissension within the caucus about his leadership. His bill would have to win over at least 3 camps of doubters: those who think it does not go far enough in taming federal deficits, those who think it will hurt their constituents, and those who have not voted for a debt limit increase before and might never in the future. Those people are the people that we call stupid. I'm going to talk about this for a second. What's happening here? In a way that Reuters is not going to talk about. Now, as far as what's happening here, as far as what's happening with McCarthy, as far as what's happening with the debt ceiling, there are hardliners in the MAGA movement who will get rebuked by their constituents, both in their districts and the ones that they've taken on from social media, if they vote for a debt limit increase. Especially people who are in deep, deep MAGA areas. That will happen. I'm not going to come out and say that might happen. I'm not even going to say that's a possibility. That will happen. Your Chip Roys, your Matt Gaetzes, your people like that have been told by their constituencies that they do not go in and authorize any debt ceiling increase for any reason whatsoever. Which I would love to be on board with that. That's what I would like to see coming from our government. No more debt ceiling increases. We are stopped at 31.4. But because of the way the Democrats in the last term bucked around, we are not in a position where that can be done. There is going to have to be a compromise somewhere. And that's what McCarthy is trying to bring forward. I can't believe for a second I am praising Kevin McCarthy on this. But he's right. I don't think his spending cuts go far enough. But he is right to come out here and dangle the carrot of the debt ceiling increase in front of Biden and the Senate Democrats, saying, come on, come get it. No, you give us, you do a little thing for us here and we'll give you this nice carrot here. In the chamber that does control the purse strings. Because they waited until the last possible second to do this. There's no alternative, as much as it blows. It's either default, which I mean I'm okay with, but a lot of people who depend on government services are not. It's either default or give a little concession back to Democrats to try to get their concession on spending cuts, which is in and of itself a hard road to hoe. I think that there are more than 5 House Republicans who are in the camp that I described earlier that have been told expressly by their constituencies that no debt increases whatsoever under any circumstances, no matter how much spending cuts are put in there. I think there are enough to tank this bill. I do. I really do. Which is a shame. Because I've said from the beginning, where Biden will refuse any spending cuts at all and just wants it clean, just wants his way and nothing else. Or the people pulling his strings way, I should say. And nothing else. No concessions, no anything back. And I've criticized him for it and said, Biden is coming from a position of, and he's coming from a position of strength, regretfully, because of what the mainstream media will do for him and run cover for him. But he is coming from a position where there is absolutely no negotiation, and it's just his way right now, all the time, no matter what. Whereas McCarthy and the majority of his caucus came in with okay, here's what we want to cut. Give us some spending cuts and we'll give you a little bit more money to play with as we sit down and figure out what to do with this next year. And still, the mainstream media will tell us that the Republicans are the ones who aren't being reasonable. But the worst part of it is that when the Chip Roys and what's the dude from Arizona? The Gozars, the people like that, and the Boberts come out and they do what their constituencies say, and they don't give an inch to anything. They're the faces that are going to appear on the mainstream news. Which is why when I read the Politico article yesterday, I said, yes, of course Biden can steamroll Republicans on this, because he's got a captive media. Even though he's the asshole in this situation, he's got a captive media. But even his caucus is having problems with this, from Axios. Democratic anxiety emerges over Biden's debt ceiling stance, from Andrew Solender. Some House Democrats are beginning to question Biden's refusal to sit down with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy on the debt limit. Again, he's coming from a position where your Politicos, your CNNs, NBC, and its subsidiaries, and even Fox News to an extent, will come back and run cover for him. Of course he's going to sit down on his hands and say, hey, no man, I ain't going to do shit. You can't make me. Come on, man. Why it matters? It signals the House Republicans' debt ceiling bill is at least in part having the intended effect of serving as the GOP's starting position in debt ceiling negotiations. Biden, in a speech on Wednesday, reacted to the proposal, dismissed Republicans as threatening to default unless I agree to these wacko notions that they have to cut spending in exchange for lifting the debt limit. Joe Manchin released a statement on Thursday calling for Biden to come to the table. Look, while it's reasonable to sincerely disagree with any specific debt ceiling approach, we will achieve a historic default if President Biden continues to refuse to even negotiate. Manchin credited McCarthy with putting forward a proposal that would prevent default and rein in federal spending, adding that while he does not agree with all of its contents, it's the only bill actually moving through Congress that would even prevent default. What we're hearing, I respect the White House position. Dean Phillips of Minnesota, who I'm familiar with, and this doesn't surprise me, told Axios, but not in perpetuity, because negotiation, that's what this whole institution is about. Jared Moskowitz of Florida says, I do think the president and speaker should always talk. And Joe Biden has shown over his history that he's willing to negotiate. Yeah, but the people pulling his strings right now are not. We're going to have to negotiate, said Haley Stevens of Michigan. We obviously want to move away from just legislating by crisis. I'm encouraging continued negotiations. There's something now to react to, Stevens said of the debt ceiling bill, and although I don't like what I'm reacting to, I'm glad there's at least something to react to. The other side, it's unclear why we're still waiting for Republicans to actually put their budget into the public domain, not talking points, not speeches, a budget. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said at a press conference on Thursday. Well, they don't have to do a budget because you guys put the omnibus out until October of this year. The budget, so-called, is already taken care of. You've appropriated enough funds to last through the rest of the fiscal year. That was your caucus that did that, under the knowledge that they were going to lose the House after the elections. That was you. This is not about a budget. This is about coming together to find a common ground to raise the debt ceiling. Once they have a budget, I think we're all willing to sit down and have a conversation about spending priorities. Yeah, that's not the boat we're in right now, though, Hakeem. Annie Custer of New Hampshire, the chair of the moderate New Democratic Coalition, argued that GOP efforts to roll back funds from the American Rescue Plan and Inflation Production Act should be non-negotiable. Most Democrats who spoke to Axios were still highly critical of the bill's contents and said they would also likely vote against it when it comes to the floor. Well, they have to. Their minority leader has them in lockstep, so they have to vote against it. So, and a few things coming off the Democrat side for this, of course. Now, I've looked and I've seen some of the propaganda coming out already. I've seen it on Instagram, I've seen it on Twitter, where the White House is putting out the propaganda of, oh, well, all they're doing with these is tax cuts for the rich. The same line they always use. The same line they have been using since 1984, when I was born, that I can actually witness to, and probably long before. It's always the same line. Anything that the Republicans put forward is tax cuts for the rich when it comes to a budgetary moment. So, yeah, Democrats are not in a position where they even want to negotiate. So, we'll see what happens. Honestly, I anticipate that there's going to be a default. My anticipation is it's either going to be a default, or it's going to be the other side of that is going to be the fact that at the clutch in the last second, Kevin McCarthy and a bunch of squishy moderates in vulnerable districts are going to come together and side with all of the Democrats, and all of a sudden we'll have either a suspended debt ceiling, or we'll have a debt ceiling that'll last for like 5 years or something. Let's listen to Kevin McCarthy on the subject. Kevin McCarthy, House Republicans have a plan for a responsible debt ceiling increase. The Senate does not. President Biden cannot continue to ignore this crisis. It's time for him to come to the table or risk bumbling into the first default in our nation's history. Again, Kevin, I like what you're doing. And in the very short term, I actually agree with it for the most part. I can't believe I'm saying the words I agree with Kevin McCarthy. God, who the hell am I? But you have to remember, you're fighting against a media that's captive to the other party. Let's listen now.
We owe it to the American people to use this moment in history to deliver the future they want, need, and deserve. House Republicans have a plan. The Senate does not. And the President is ignoring the debt crisis. President Biden has a choice. Come to the table and stop playing partisan political games. Or cover his ears, refuse to negotiate, and risk bumbling his way into the first default in our nation's history. We owe it to the American people to use this moment in history to deliver the future they want, need, and deserve. House Republicans have a plan. The Senate does not. And the President is ignoring the debt crisis. President Biden has a choice. Come to the table and stop playing partisan political games. Or cover his ears, refuse to negotiate, and risk bumbling his way into the first default in our nation's history. We owe it to the American people to use this moment in history to deliver the future they want.
All right, so and he started over. And again, the unfortunate part is the fact that, as I said at the top of this, Biden is the asshole in this situation. He is. There's no other way to put that. But he's the asshole with a captive media who will sing his praises and say that it's the evil Republicans who want tax cuts for the rich. And we can even see some of that here with our friends to the other side. Call to activism! Breaking, Kevin McCarthy suffers a tremendous embarrassment as a new poll, not aggregated of course, finds 70% of Americans support raising the debt ceiling to avoid default. No question on whether or not to have spending cuts with that. It's just that they support raising the debt ceiling to avoid a default. But see, here's what call to activism won't tell you is the fact that so does Kevin McCarthy. This comes after news that a whopping 67% of Americans said the GOP should stay away from stopping investigations into Trump. Again, worded in a toxic manner. The verdict is in. The American people are wholesale against the GOP House's plans, and it spells disaster for McCarthy's chance at re-election. A lot of this is coming from lies that call to activism is moving out. McCarthy is fully in favor of raising the debt ceiling. He has said as much. It's in the documents. You just got to give him something back. But call to activism is paid to propagate and propagandize. And you also see a massive swath of people that are sitting here smelling their farts. Which is what this equates to because, I mean, this statement here is shit. From the Hill. Ocasio-Cortez and Ed Markey reintroduced Green New Deal resolution. We need bold, big climate action. Bet me that I am about to do my Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez impression. From Zach Budrick. The Honorable and Venerable Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez, D. Twitch, and Ed Markey announced the reintroduction of their signature Green New Deal resolution Thursday, along with a Green New Deal for Health co-sponsored by Markey and Ro Khanna. Speaking on Capitol Hill on Thursday, Ocasio-Cortez and the successful passage of the Inflation Production Act in 2022 provided an ambitious action on climate was possible. The bill would almost certainly never reach the House floor under the current Republican majority, but speakers repeatedly invoked the possibility of a restored Democratic trifecta in the 2024 election. I don't think so, because honestly, with the Senate map that's coming up this time, I don't think you can honk your way out of the Senate. The House, with every seat being up every 2 years, every election, is a different story. But I don't think you can honk your way into the Senate this map. I want to look. We might talk about this a bit more tomorrow, because I want to look, and I know that we have time, I think. Let's look at who's up in 2024. Yeah, this is probably not good for them. So, contested in 2024. We have the safe ones. Minnesota. Alright, we've got Kirsten Sinema, who is not a Democrat anymore. Consensus is this one is all likely red. Rick Scott is safe. Angus King, who is nonpartisan and will remain nonpartisan, he is safe. Got a few safe Dems here. Stabenow, Tester. Tester is a toss-up. So when we look in here, we see like the party of these people, which was where we see a purple with Angus King because he's independent. But the likely outcome's here. So we've got, this is probably going to stay the same, but Sinema is likely red. It's very in the middle with a honk, but it's likely red. So that's one flip. Likely. Two flips. Montana, I think, is going to go hard red this time through. Jackie Rosen of Nevada. Sherrod Brown of Ohio. That state keeps getting redder and redder. Pennsylvania, I would move more into the middle. I still think it's going to go blue, but I think Bob Casey's going to have to take his chances a little bit more. Ted Cruz is safe. We don't have to worry about that one. And Joe Manchin, which is likely a red flip too. I talked a little bit earlier, by the way, of possibly running for this seat. I have to go see what I have to do for my paperwork, but I want to get that filed by 2024, which means I want to have settled down where I'm going to live by 2024. I'd like to contest Tammy Baldwin, who's up this time through. Because I tried to do it in 2018, but my girlfriend broke up with me after I had all my paperwork ready to get filed, and I didn't know where I was going to be living come election time. I like, by the way, how they put Texas as Rick Scott, Florida and Texas. Where's the Texas one? Right there. As possible flips. Dude, Texas is not going to flip. But I mean, look at all that red down in the safe seats. Democrats can win the Senate this time through, but it's going to be hard. They have a lot of work to do it. And yeah, some of that might be honk. Alright, anyway, going back to the Hill. Now that we got distracted. Speaking on Capitol Hill on Thursday, Ocasio-Chavez said the successful passage of the Inflation Reduction Act in 2022 proved ambitious action on climate was possible. The bill would almost certainly never reach... Well, they didn't lead with climate. That's the other issue with that. They tried to tie that to inflation. The bill would almost certainly never reach the House floor in the current Republican majority, but speakers repeatedly invoked the possibility of a restored Democratic trifecta in 2024. First we were called unrealistic, puppy. Then, when it came time for the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act, we started to fight, okay, puppy? We said that we're not going to take crumbs, and we're not going to settle for that. We need big, bold climate action, and we need it now, okay, papi? And that fight resulted in the largest piece of climate legislation in American history. Markey and Khanna timed the reintroduction for the 4th anniversary of their original Green New Deal resolution in 2019, shortly after Ocasio-Chavez was sworn into Congress. The resolution proposed a broad swath of environmental and economic reforms, including expansion of high-speed rail, implementation of a social cost of carbon rule, and creation of a state jobs program modeled after the Depression-era initiatives that are its namesake. A part of the reason they're doing this right now is the fact that it can't pass. Keep in mind, by the way, that we didn't hear a word about this under the Democrat trifecta. From 2021 rather, to 2023, you didn't hear a single word about the Green New Deal. Period. None whatsoever. It's one of the things that they only bring up when it can't pass. And a lot of people, by the way, know, even the people who are behind this bill know that it's both, number one, devastating to the economy. It may put any financial trouble either onto the board or make it last longer, which we are headed into a recession right now, and they can make that last longer. So the only time they ever discuss it is when there's no chance of passage. In the House, in 2019, as they pointed out. 2018 was a Democratic majority in the House, with a Republican majority in the Senate, which means it was stopped at the Senate, and even if it didn't get stopped at the Senate, it was subject to the veto pen. But they're going to try to do this to try to virtue signal from it. And NBC, or ABC 10 rather, your local leader out of Albany, focusing on the healthcare side of it. Democrats push for a Green New Deal in healthcare sector. From Alexandra Limon. Lawmakers who support the Green New Deal say despite skepticism from the many, the platform is moving forward and they plan to continue pushing for new green initiatives. Ed Markey additionally says a Green New Deal for the healthcare industry is the next focus for a healthcare system that puts people and our planet before pollution and profits. Markey says the healthcare sector accounts for 8.5% of U.S. greenhouse gas emissions. Our healthcare providers are trying to heal patients, but the healthcare system is part of what makes them sick, Markey said. The goal of the healthcare Green New Deal is to make the industry more energy efficient and to make healthcare more accessible, especially in communities of color that are most impacted by climate change and pollution. So they put economic, environmental wokeism, and racism all into one place. Who writes these talking points for these people? Alright. Another one out of my neck of the woods, since we talked about Tammy Baldwin just a moment ago. From the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Thank you to Putz for bringing this to my attention in the Discord. Embattled former chairman of Wisconsin Parole Commission, John Tate II, charged with felony public corruption. From Drake Bentley. In a story that could only come out of Racine County, by the way. Me, having lived next to it for 10 years. Former Wisconsin Parole Commission chairman and recent Racine alderman John Tate II was criminally charged Tuesday with a felony, accused of using his capacity as a public official for private interests. Tate is charged with 1 count of private interest in a public contract while working in a public capacity in Racine County. According to the criminal complaint, Tate unlawfully negotiated terms of his employment for Racine's new violence interruption coordinator position. After approving of creation of the job as president of the Common Council, Racine used $784,000 in COVID relief funds to approve the position. The Common Council approved the violence interruption coordinator position on July 19th, a meeting that Tate presided over. The position was then advertised from September 8th to September 22nd, and Tate applied and became the finalist for the position, the complaint states. On October 11th, it was made public through news media that Tate had accepted the job of independent police monitor of Madison Police. 2 days later, the city of Racine emailed an offer to Tate for violence interruption coordinator, the complaint states. Tate countered the offer by requesting more salary and more vacation time, the complaint states. 2 city officials, Public Health Administrator Dottie K. Bower-Sox and City Admin Paul Bornholt, agreed to Tate's requests and amended the offer to him, the complaint states. So he created the position, he applied for the position, he got the job, and then he negotiated a higher salary from the position that he created. One hand washes the other. And by the way, this goes on in national and local politics all the goddamn time. This is not new. People looking for ways to make themselves rich off the taxpayer dime. Yeah, I need a producer for that grant. That's the thing. Like, I like the idea of doing that, but you have to keep in mind there's only one of me. Between 45 hours a week at work, and then coming here and doing the prep for this, and then trying to have dinner and go straight to bed, something gets cut somewhere. I like the idea. I do. Would you do something like that for me? We'll talk after the show. I have somebody else possibly in mind for that too. But you're one of the few people I trust with my passwords. Prosecutors argue that Tate, by applying for and negotiating the terms of his employment, he acted on behalf of his own pecuniary interests. I think KTZed does the Stephen Ignoramus clips. I think. I'm going to talk to her about that too, actually. Last year, Governor Evers asked for Tate's resignation as Wisconsin Parole Commission chairman, following Tate's decision to parole Douglas Balsawicz, who was convicted of stabbing his wife to death in the presence of the couple's 2 young children. Yeah, this is a charming gentleman, but this is not new from Racine County. And the last one, and then we will do things I like and things that I hate, which for the first time in a while, I've actually got more things that I like than things that I hate. From the Associated Press. Dan Bongino, unfiltered Fox News host, leaving the network. From... Do we have an author on this one? It doesn't appear so. Fox News is parting ways with weekend host Dan Bongino after the former Secret Service agent turned conservative pundit said Thursday they couldn't agree on a new contract. It's not some big conspiracy, Bongino said in his podcast. There's no acrimony. This wasn't like some WWE brawl that happened. We just couldn't come to terms on an extension. Bongino hosted the Saturday night show Unfiltered and said that while he was given the chance to do a last show this weekend, he decided against it. The blunt-talking former New York police officer began doing commentary on Fox a decade ago, joining as a contributor in 2019 and beginning his Saturday night show in 2021. His canceled in the USA program on Fox Nation will also end, and the streaming service no longer air his daily radio shows. Bongino may still appear as a guest on Fox shows, the network said. We thank Dan for his contributions and wish him success in his future endeavors, Fox said in a statement on Thursday. This is not going to be a loss for anybody but Fox News. This is not going to be a loss for anybody except for Fox News. Dan Bongino is the biggest creator, I think, still on Rumble to this day. Dan can at any time just go out and start up a live stream on Rumble and draw probably the same, if not more, especially if he's absent from another platform, than he could on Fox on any given day, with more people cutting cable, more people looking to streaming alternatives, and especially the, stream yourself options out there. Dan Bongino can do better than Fox News. Better than controlled opposition. And it's time for him to come back and part ways. This actually reminds me of a Twitter interaction that I had with somebody years ago. Back when I was still doing one-off videos, I did one about... What did I do one about? I don't even remember what I did one about, but somebody had to come into the comments and say... I think it was actually on the Twitter announcement of the video and say, why don't you just stop doing videos right now? Stop doing any sort of content. Fox News is never going to hire you. And I came out the next week with a video that said, I will never work for Fox News. Fox News could offer me a 7-figure contract, which would be hard to say no to, given the fact that I'm in the $50,000 range. They could come out and offer me a 7-figure contract where I could say whatever I wanted, and they would censor it for the FCC, but other than that, just let me drop F-bombs left and right and just have somebody whose job it was to sit there and hit the bleep button as I dropped an F-bomb, and I still wouldn't do it. And honestly, I slipped a little bit on this podcast, but if you are here watching now or the replay and you've got the kids in the room, earmuffs are coming now. So I'll give you a second. Get the earmuffs on in 3, 2, 1. I wouldn't work for Fox News because I can't say fuck on the air. I can't say fuck that, I can't say shit, I can't say damn. Even though I try my damnedest not to use them because I want to appeal to an AM radio audience. I can here if I need to, or affect. And I don't have some corporate oligarch coming down and tell me what I can and can't do. I want to sit here in my living room and read the news to you every day. I love doing that. I want to work with Grant and get clips. I'd love to do that. Or KTZed possibly. Or Vong. I think Vong would be good at that. I just don't have money to pay Vong. That's the thing. But that is an idea. And good on Bongino for leaving Fox News. Even though it was on friendly terms. Good on Bongino for getting away from Fox News. Alright, let's do some things that I like and some things that I hate. Including one that straddles the line. Thing that I like today, number 1. Even the Oakland A's can't stand California. The Wall Street Journal reports the Oakland A's say they're leaving for Vegas. From Lindsay Adler. The Oakland A's' long and colorful residency in Oakland has generated dynastic World Series champions, some of baseball's biggest personalities, with a revolutionary roster building a strategy known as Moneyball. What it has mostly lacked, however, is what the team feels is the combination of fan and government support that would make it a business success too. So the team set their sights has decided to leave the Bay Area for Las Vegas as soon as the end of the 2024 season with MLB's blessing. The A's ownership, led by John Fisher, has reached a binding deal to purchase a 49-acre plot of land in Las Vegas, which would become the site of a new ballpark estimated to cost $1.5 billion, built with a mixture of public and private financing. The A's expect to contribute $1 billion of private capital to the deal, while asking the city of Vegas for $500 million to build their new ballpark in addition. According to a person familiar with the matter, the land itself is expected to be sold to the A's for $225 million by Red Rock Resorts, a casino company. So basically it was something that the casino looked at and said, yeah, I can't do anything on this land. Have it for cheap, and then your fans can come in and gamble in my casino. Capitalism always wins. I love this. This is amazing. Who else is California going to drive out of their state? I would laugh my ass off if the LA Rams went back to St. Louis. That would make my day, by the way. And oddly enough, by the way, I mean, I do see that there's probably going to be some local fandom that goes with them. I don't think, and I'm not as familiar with California, with the exception of, playing the original Fallout. But I don't think Oakland is geographically that far from Vegas either. And across the state, obviously, but I don't think roundabout it's that far. And the Raiders already went to Vegas. So to get both the teams out of Oakland and into Vegas, also would be interesting to see, because I think, and again, I don't know Oakland that well, I think when they were both in Oakland, I think they did like the Twins and the Vikings did, where they shared a stadium, which I believe the Twins and the Vikings still share a stadium. It's been so long since I watched baseball. I'm struggling with some of my statistics at this point. But I think they shared in Oakland, and with all the wide open land outside of Vegas, it'd be kind of nice to see them have their own stadium for both events. Well, good on them. Some of the fans are disappointed, but I think that they're going to follow. Longtime A's fans saddened by Las Vegas relocation news from ESPN. Ryan Thibodeau arrived in the Bay Area in '95 from Texas and still became a fan of the Athletics. Not gonna lie, that's kind of what happened with me and the Red Sox. The one-time Astros fan cheered Stucker Mark McGwire, who hit 52 home runs the following year. He saw the glory days of Dave Stewart and Dennis Eckersley, of Eric Chavez, Jason Giambini, and Miguel Tejada, of $2 BART rides and bargain bleacher seats in the third deck. The A's converted me over pretty quickly, he said. All these years later, Thibodeau and many Oakland fans already were heartbroken about the state of their struggling team. Small crowds, bad baseball, and dismal winners, watching the top players being traded away or lost in free agency. Now the greatest disappointment yet. Yes, the A's are leaving for Vegas. Well, especially if they're going down into a slump, a change of venue, and also a change of fandom could do a change for picking back up and help push them back up into trading territory again. That's going to depend on coaching and management. But we'll see what happens. I'm curious of this. I will never become an Oakland A's fan. I am Team Fenway for life, but still, I'd like to see this. Other things that I like. I have been playing Civilization 6. Often we come here, we look at what I've been either watching on streaming, which I think is what we'll do next week, or what I've been playing for video games, which is what I've been doing every chance that I get, which has not been very much, by the way, honestly. I've got open characters in both New Vegas and Fallout 4 that I want to see other endings for. I just almost rarely ever have time to sit down and play a video game anymore. And now, the Clips channel that's been proposed to me too, which I will be negotiating after the show here. No plans in the chat. But when I do actually have time to sit down for myself, I'll either sit down and read a book, which, yes, John, I am reading Starship Troopers now. Or if I do play a video game, I sit down for a few hours, and which, by the way, this is one that gets away from me. If I sit down and play Civilization, I sit down and say, I'm going to play for a half hour while I'm eating breakfast or something. And then I look at the clock and realize that 3.5 hours have passed. But here's the launch trailer for Sid Meier's Civilization 6, which, if you have not tried, spend the money. Well, let me rephrase that. Watch for it's on sale, which it goes on sale all the time. You can get like almost $300 worth of game, I think is what all DLCs are up to, for sometimes like $50. I think that's what I got it for. And I have all the DLCs, but let's watch.
You're plotting a new course again, aren't you?
The currents before us are ever changing. We must adapt, press forward, if we are to see our journey's end.
And how will we know when we get there?
It is the nature of humankind to push itself toward the horizon. We test our limits. We face our fears. We rise to the challenge and become something greater than ourselves. A civilization.
So, and yes, I do understand the fact that I'm talking about a 6-year-old video game at this point, but I mean, again, if you haven't checked it out, it's a lot of fun, and you play it the way that you want to. You choose your hero, you choose your main general, you choose the country that you want to represent, and then you can either go the peaceful route and go down the tech tree, try to get all the natural wonders done before everybody else does, or if you really want to be a warlord, it is a long, hard road to do, but you can do it and shape civilization the way that you want. So, yeah, if you haven't checked out Civilization, absolutely do so. It's amazing. It's wonderful. Matt Walsh actually weighing in on his own issues from the Daily Wire. Matt Walsh breaks silence after major hack, says an insider was involved. From Zach Jewell. Matt Walsh broke his silence on Wednesday after a hacker gained access to his Twitter account, disclosing that the hack was more comprehensive than people thought. Many of Walsh's followers noticed something was awry when his Twitter account started posting uncharacteristic messages. Although he has since regained access, Walsh said his phone and private online files were also infiltrated by the stranger. So we're going to listen to him. I'm not going to do Matt Walsh voice for that long, but we'll listen to him and see how he puts it.
As we've learned, the severity of a crime is judged according to the victim's social credit score. And according to the left and how they tally it, my score is very, very low. So there's basically there's nothing you could do to me that would not be justified as far as they're concerned. Now, just a few hours ago, the publication Wired put out an article, an interview actually, with the hacker, who says that he accessed my phone when a, quote, insider gave him information that the insider apparently had access to and allowed him to switch my phone number over to a SIM card that he controlled. This insider helped him to do that. Now, how did that come about? What sort of insider? What institution was this insider inside of? What was motivating the insider to distribute my personal data to a hacker? We can make some educated guesses, but we don't know at this point. There's still a lot we don't know about what happened, who did it, how, why. But I'll tell you, we're going to get answers to all those questions. We're getting them right now. And there are going to be consequences. There are going to be severe consequences. And I'll also tell you right now, that includes the journalist who solicited stolen information from my phone. Okay? I hope you can afford more expensive lawyers than I can, because lawyer up.
And that is the way to look at something like this. You know, you can sit down there in despair and wonder what it is that's out there that people are going to see, what they're going to do with that, and what was on your phone when it got hacked. Or you can come back out and stand tall and say, get your lawyer ready, because I've got a good one. I've listened to Matt Walsh's lawyer. He wears a tiny hat and speaks very quickly and fast. You don't think Ben's going to get on this one? A major public interest case that he can go back and shill off of and grift off of for decades to come? No, he is going to be right in the forefront and the center of this one. I promise you. We'll do one that's on the line and then a couple things that I hate. On the line. So, a good thing off this, Nancy Mace. Past. All the glass ceilings shattered by women in sports have been for nothing if we allow biological men to compete with biological women. We will stand with women and fight for the right to a fair competition. On a party line vote, 216 to 204, with 21 no votes. A bill to ban transgender athletes in girls' sports. Now, again, as Nancy Mace pointed out, when you're in public opportunities with when you're in public accommodations with public opportunities, and college scouts watching to only take the top of the top, these women who are making the records against other women are being cheated by the fact that somebody who was, and it almost always seems to be the case, somebody who was mediocre as a man runs in and takes over the spot, and you never watch it go the other direction. Now, as far as private intramural activities go, that's between the people who compete there and the owners, but these are public accommodations. These are public systems. So yes, the public gets a say in how these are done. Now, the reason this is on the line is because, as Political, Wisconsin Neanderthal points out, sad something like this even needs to be codified into federal law, yet here we are. And then he hits the next part of the nail right on the head. And when President Biden vetoes this, the GOP better be ready to cut the ad to use against him in 24, which they won't. And this is why this comes on the line and comes as something that I hate. Because the squishy, wishy-washy GOP is absolutely not going to jump on this and cut the ad. Instead, they're going to come back here and whine and bitch and complain when they can't get anything done. This is my singular social issue heading into 2024, and I'm neither a parent nor a female, and by the way, that might be why you lose in 24. I'm going to talk to Wiz a little bit after this too, and kind of let him know what the actual issue is that's out there. Because we need to be focusing on the union, especially in this state. The union vote, and the activity that's going to happen around Act 10 in the next 12 months. Now let's do a couple things that I hate. From NBC, the story you'd never heard of. Because it's white on white. NBC News reports what we know about the killing of the New York woman who was shot after pulling into the wrong driveway. From Myrna Al-Sharif. A 20-year-old woman with dreams of becoming a marine biologist was fatally shot by a homeowner Saturday when the car she was in turned into the wrong driveway in upstate New York. Caitlin Gillis' death, which occurred days after 16-year-old Ralph Yarl was shot and seriously injured after ringing the wrong doorbell in Kansas City, has sparked a national conversation around gun violence, as well as stand your ground and castle doctrine, both self-defense laws. No, it didn't, because this one got swept under the rug. Like, NBC can come out here and try to say that, oh no, this is sparking a national conversation. It's not. This is getting ignored. Ralph Yarl is sparking the national conversation. On Tuesday, an attorney for the suspect in Gillis' death spoke about the incident for the first time, saying his client did not intend to hurt anyone. However, questions remain around why the suspect, Kevin Monahan, allegedly opened a fire. And just a brief overview of what happened. Gillis' friend pulled into the driveway of a home that they mistakenly believed to belong to another friend, authorities said. Monahan, 65, is alleged to have fired at the car from his porch after the group of 4 friends realized they'd pulled into the wrong driveway and were leaving the home in Hebron, roughly 50 miles north of Albany, Washington County. Sheriff Jeffrey Murphy told reporters. 2 shots were fired, one striking Gillis, who was sitting in the passenger seat, according to authorities. This is a very sad case of some young adults that were looking for a friend's house and ended up at this man's house, Murphy said. The area where Gillis was shot is rural with very little cell phone or internet service. Her friends drove a few miles to call 911, the sheriff said. Gillis was pronounced dead several miles southeast of the home on Patterson Hill Road, where the shots were fired. So that's how that went down. Let's talk about this for a second. Now, I hate this on so many levels. Number one, unless you have a very, very distinct reason, like there's a mafia hit out on you or something like that, do not fire on a vehicle that has just come into your driveway. I have been in rural Wisconsin for my entire life. I have been on land that is far, 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 far away and removed from everything else, where it would be very unlikely for people to go. Which doesn't seem like it's the case for this. This seems like this was in possibly a small neighborhood, but still out in the country, far enough out that there's no cell phone service. I have been on properties where your nearest neighbor is 5.5 miles away. I have never once, myself or known anybody who felt the need to point a firearm at somebody who's just coming into their driveway. Period. I don't know if this guy thought this was the tax man coming for him, if he was the draft man, or anything else like that, but there is no excuse for this. My second big problem with this is I am a staunch advocate. I know that our friends to the left try to say that anybody who isn't a Democrat is for free and open guns and no regulations and just letting anybody have a gun that wants with no responsibility. No, that's not the case. And I am a staunch advocate for the 3 rules of firearm safety. Number 1, treat every firearm as if it was loaded. That one does not appear to have been violated in this situation. In fact, he was treating his firearm as if it was loaded. Stupidly. But the other 2 that he violated to do this, these are laws that I consider the same as the 10 Commandments. Know your target and what is beyond it. This guy had no idea who was in this car. He just saw a car turn in and he fired. He didn't know his target, he just knew there was a car there. And he shot at it. No questions, no nothing. But the other side of that is, if we take him at his word and says, I didn't really want to hurt anybody, you failed at it miserably, because the 3rd rule is never point your firearm at something that you do not intend to destroy. Ever. Never. Never, ever, 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 ever point your firearm at something you do not intend to destroy. You moron. And I hope you rot in prison for the rest of your life for this. If I ever have to pull my firearm out at somebody and it goes pointed at something, I am ready to destroy that thing. I hope I never have to pull one out at somebody, ever. I have it just in case, but I hope that I never have to get in that situation. Alright, and the other thing that I hate tonight, we talked about it earlier, and this I'm gonna just use this as the backdrop here, but the Hot Air article on the war with those with good credit. So I read this, I read something into this, and then we read more of this from the New York Post. A recap. What the Biden admin is doing right now is taking some more money from people who have had very good credit, who are likely to come and pay the bills, and who are likely to be that eager to go buy property because they've got the good credit and they feel like they've earned the right to do so, which they have. They absolutely have. And they're going to use that to subsidize and put a bit of a backstop in there so they can start extending loans to people who have shakier credit, especially some of the people who are right on the line and have some money left over for if they do happen to default on something. Like, they're not going out and buying houses for these people, but they're putting some money in so that the bankers don't lose their asses if they start going into a tailspin of default after default after default. But I thought about this after I read this article and saw what it is that they're going to do, and I realized what's happening here. What's actually happening. And it's sinister, and it kind of happened. Like, I always say that the 2008 crash of the economy should have happened in 2002. It absolutely should have happened then. But when we started sending people over to Afghanistan and Iraq and a host of other places for W's redneck agenda, Daddy, are you proud of me yet? I'm going after Saddam Hussein. After we started sending people over into that bullshit story, the combat pay started rolling back in, and as people were enlisting because it was the patriotic duty to do so, we started to see more job openings open up and more opportunities were there around for everybody, which pushed the crash back to 2008. Early enough that they could still blame it on Bush, but like, this was supposed to be the centerpiece and the problem of Bush's administration, not the war in Iraq. Although, if you knew anything about the neocon Republicans of the time, you knew that the war in Iraq was coming. This goes right on to a Clinton-esque and Clinton-era mistake and folly that did the same thing. Without the subsidy, of course, but still trying to extend this to try to be the hero of the poor people and say, hey, we're going to force the banks to come back in and take you at a reasonable rate, even if you have piss poor credit. We're going to force that to happen because we want everybody to be in there. And then they went off and they overspent and they bit off more than they could chew, and then they started defaulting on the houses, which started to tank in value. But this is not going to be something that happens right away. Now, the rest of the Biden term goes through at least 2025 to January 20th, 2025, in fact. Foreclosure takes a long time, number one. They have to go through courts, they have to come back in and get the sheriff to come in and seize your property for you. So it's not something that just happens overnight. You just you don't miss a payment and then you foreclose. Usually there's at least a half a year's of payments missed before the foreclosure comes, which tells me that a lot of these things are not going to start popping up until 2025 or later. And I look at the timeline of something like this, and like, the numbers are not looking good for the Biden admin. And there is a very good shot that even with honking, they can't come back and overcome it. It definitely depends on who the nominee is. And this, especially, number one, it looks like they're going to come back in and try to champion the poor, and especially the minority. I hate to say it, but that's who this is targeted for, is the minority. just like it was under Bill, to get them in here even if they're in a shaky or a bad situation, and then start to default and start to have problems right when it's somebody else's admin and somebody else's problem, and then, oh hey, it's Ron DeSantis tanked the economy, or Donald Trump tanked the economy, or Nikki Haley tanked the economy. Oh god, that scares the shit out of me. The thought of Nikki Haley being president scares the ever-loving shit out of me. So they'll take all the credit for lifting these people out of poverty and giving them wealth. And then when the houses start to lose value, it's, oh, well, this person tanked the economy. This is just cynical, the way these people are doing things. And the only reason that I know they do it is because they've been doing it for 70 years as Democrats. Start up a bunch of programs that cost too much or are destined to fail. Say that they're championing them for the poor and make them exclusively for the poor. And then wait until they inevitably fail and then blame the next Republican administration for them failing. They've been doing this since Roosevelt. And they get away with it because their voters only think 6 months ahead. And then when I was voting Democrat, I was only thinking like 6 months ahead at a time. So, I hate this. I hate every part about this. I hate realizing and finding out that this is just another program that they're going to come up that's destined to fail. And fail into a point where they leave a Republican holding the bag. I hate every aspect of this. And with that, we're out of here. Look at that. Extra long show tonight. I'm gonna talk to Grant, maybe Vong, maybe KTZed too, about doing clips. Although KTZed is doing a lot of work on her own, so with Hawkhound, well, we'll see. Let's throw some outro music up and head out of here. Oh, the computer restarted because I lost power today. I don't know if they were repairing a line or something, but they cut the power here for like 10 seconds. Just long enough for the computer to shut down. So we don't have any intro or outro music up on the screen. Alright, so thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat. I do hope that you guys would enjoy seeing some clips around here if I can get them done. Again, I've got too much on my plate already. There's no way that I can do this myself. But if I can get somebody to do some production work and get this done, I'd like to get some of that up there. Too bad my nieces and nephews are too young to do that. That would be some free, cheap labor that I could enlist in, but, well, we've got some stuff going on there. We'll be back here tomorrow with more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. We'll read the Twitter trending. We'll see what's happening in the next 22 hours. We'll probably talk about the debt ceiling some more. And a host of other things. It's always fun, although it's getting slower coming into the weekend, and they try to pack the stuff in while nobody's paying attention, but we'll see what happens with that. Come back in, join me tomorrow, and until then, have fun, be safe, have a good night, eat some dinner, hug your loved ones, and take care. Stick around if you're on Twitch. We are going raiding, and we will see you here next time on Contemporary. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.